JD, in all fairness, JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
I didn't realize this was going on
I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask
why don't you
That's
answer
the problem.
Ooh, they can both talk.
the question in
You
detail?
could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of
Her mic
Virginia
is
said
on.
we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
That's going to be a big
Immigration
fucking
and border
thing.
security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions,
JMACK for president.
who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
You see that one
And I
video?
will tell you, the one thing
They
you will
were
not
walking
hear him talk
out
about
by the
is you.
10s and
You will
20s
not
on
hear
the
him talk
Sandy
about your
place.
needs, your
It was
dreams,
like a
and
beach
your
or something.
and your desires. And I'll
With
tell
a
you, I
festival
believe
next to
in
it. They're out of there.
a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I
He
want to get
gave
your
that.
Well, I
response.
would like to
He gave
respond.
his
Let me just ask,
felony
though,
look.
why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies.
Ooh,
People
now
don't-
the
people
interviewer
don't
has
go to
asked
her
a
rallies.
question.
There's no reason to go. And the people
To
that
her
do go, she's
question.
busing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest
Oh,
rallies,
yes,
the
they
most
do.
incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost.
I
We're a
watched it.
failing
It was
nation.
on
And it
MTN
happened
News.
3.5 years ago. And
One of the kids
what's going
was,
on here,
or two of the
in
guys
World
were standing
War
there. And I
III,
said
just to go
kids,
to
I mean,
another
you
subject,
know, college age.
what they have
And they
done
were
to our
filming.
country by allowing
And these
these
people
millions
were
and
fucking
millions of
walking,
people to come into our country,
walking.
and look at what's happening
And it
to
was
the
only
towns
50
all over
minutes into
the
his
United
rally.
States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield,
There was
they're
3
eating the
school
dogs,
shootings
the
this week.
people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating
They're eating the
they're
cats.
eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as
Have your neighbors
rallies are
ate your
concerned,
pets?
as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase.
They're
Make
eating the
America great
cats.
again.
They're
She's
eating the
destroying
cats.
this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela.
The missing
on
dogs and
steroids.
cats of America
I
have
just want to
gone to the
clarify here, you bring up
immigrants.
Springfield,
And
Ohio,
soup.
and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The
the
people on television said my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
said their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield
dog.
city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
They're eating the dogs.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President
They're
Bush,
eating the
Mitt
dogs.
Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is unfit. His former secretary of defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Yeah. Thank you. Because when I hear
Felony,
that,
whatever.
see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do
If
with
he
that.
got in this time, he would wipe out
13
like
people
everything.
who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people,
talking about
because
the
that was one of
dogs?
the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So
I'll be
when
right back.
somebody does a bad job, I fire them. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy, look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists, they have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration.
They fired.
So let's get back to your deportation
You fired,
proposal
motherfucker.
that the vice president has reacted to as well.
You gone.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military. You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants?
That's
I know
too bright,
believe
man.
that number
I
is
can't wait
much
to get
higher.
the dark mode.
Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States.
Selling me no stuff.
By
Where's the
their
good
countries
stuff?
like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries
You
all
know
over
that
the world
fentanyl's coming
is
over the
way down.
border from
You know why?
Mexico?
Because
You
they've
idiot.
taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country.
To her.
This will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed
fabric's
the
hard,
fabric
baby.
of our country.
No,
Millions
no.
of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof, and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
But excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American.
Uh-oh. What happened? What? Was it the Russians?
American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with the same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest of them. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases.
It's all the same shit.
Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis
They're all
to
dirty.
the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York.
China has something to do with it.
And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go
It's
after
all
me. By
about
the way,
the
Joe
snake.
Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, "Oh, that's the toughest of them all."
You thought Stoney's fucking throwing gang signs on your toes. Watch his shit, boy. He's like,
it's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting,
oh, fuck, what is going on? Well, I didn't get my mac and cheese in.
terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Wow.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil.
We have a lot of issues that we have to get to. We're out of time. Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar.
Nobody died, but Ashley so-and-so was shot.
By the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done.
An out-of-control officer protecting the Capitol.
When are these people from countries all over the world?
Politicians were as they beat through the glass.
They're coming in from all over the world, David. All over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. I want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And
During
what
this
did
election.
the president then at the time say?
Good
There were
people on
fine
both sides.
people on each side.
Mm-hmm.
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, really D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate,
I don't think so,
you
man.
have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it.
I don't even know if she'll be back by then. I don't know.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge it at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need, and we have to have it. We have to have borders.
You just said an election is fraudulent.
Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into
It's like one of our most
I did
sacred
watch all of
things.
these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No judge
Republican,
looked at it.
and said
They said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you do a special
Such
on
a
it.
liar,
I'll
man.
show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many
Put
facts.
Camillo in a suit. He
But
sounds
you know
the
what?
same thing.
That doesn't
Same
matter.
thing.
Because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the
David.
president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by whiskers, so he still believes he did not lose the election.
You just said, yeah,
That was one.
I lost by
President
a
Biden,
whisker.
and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump
Still doesn't believe it.
about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election.
Just said it again.
And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have
He
talked
just
to
said it again with his big clown
some of whom
face.
work with you, and they say you're a disgrace.
The vote is
And when you
fraudulent, he
then
says.
talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond.
Let me
What
just
does
say
he
about
mean?
world leaders.
In a world,
Victor Orban, one of the most
event.
respected men, they call
is he
him a
going to know the
strong man.
facts, or is
He's
he
a
going to
tough
think
person.
that it's something
Smart.
else because he
Prime
listened to
Minister of
Twitter?
Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him.
North Korea
I
used
ended
you
the
like a
Nord Stream
puppet.
2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one.
Let me
but
come
he
to
ended the
America.
XL
Take your
pipeline.
hand.
The XL pipeline in our country.
Bad
He
accent,
ended
sorry.
that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy.
See,
He got 14 million votes.
You know what
and
he's
they
doing
threw him
right
out of
now?
office.
he's
And you know what?
losing
I'll
his
give you a
shit.
secret. He hates
Just
her.
like any
He can't
YouTuber
stand
gets
her.
mad and
He
starts
got
yelling when you
14
call him
million
out.
votes. They threw him out.
All right?
She got
He's
0 votes.
rambling.
And when she ran,
Point,
she was
point,
the
point, point,
first one
point.
to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it because
your time
I
is up.
think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
This guy thinks he's bigger than the sky, man.
On October 7th, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
No, that's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why
Thank you, Donna.
so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
And she's the one that caused it. That's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Wow. Looks like a cash fight. Holy shit. I don't know. Right now, I gotta say Kamala's up. I mean, he started off with like big old lies and shit, right? He wasn't making any he was complete lies. Some of the stuff he was saying. In fact, the announcers had to fact check him like on the spot, which Trump didn't want, by the way. Couple little things I noticed. Kamala, you know, the mics were supposed to be muted, right? I'm all for Kamala. I want Kamala all the way. But did you notice when she went to go interrupt him, her mic was on, and there was a time that he did it and his mic was off? The critics are going to catch that. I think the critics are going to catch that. And I think she missed there was a good point there. I think she missed too. What was that on? Oh man. It was after the crime comment. She missed a good comeback and just I'm like the king of comebacks. You ask me. Think about it for a minute. But I've already forgot what the fuck it was. But I was like, oh man, she should have said this. Now she's smart. At the end of whatever she says, if she makes a comment about Trump, his vanity causes him to answer to the comment that she made and not the question, right? So he'll chew up most of his time responding that she said he was weird. Okay, that'll be his focus, not air quality, not global warming or some shit. It'll be the fact that she said that he was weird at the end of that. So I think that's a good tactic that she needs to use. And it worked a couple times. I wonder if that's what she's doing, because I've seen her do it. I've seen it happen a couple times already. And she's actually talking like stuff about a plan. Even in 2016, he didn't have a plan. He just did it, right? He winged it like most of his businesses. I don't know. Oh yeah, Donna. That wasn't even a free one. Thank you. But you notice, like when she gets under his skin, he he really starts piercing his lips and he gets kind of red and shiny. Yeah. Oh yeah, he was saying all kinds of awful shit about her dad and this and that. It's like, what the fuck's that got to do with anything? Marxist. I mean, what the fuck is a Marxist? He's talking in 1950s fucking language. That's the thing with these real old folks like this. They get stuck in their good old days and they remember when it was like, you know. I think that's what Putin's fucking problem is. Putin wants to turn it into when he was a little boy, you know, and everything was like this. I mean, I'd like that too, but I look up, I see planes doing weird shit. Got no sky. My dogs come inside smelling like they've been sprayed with some fucking weird shit. Makes you cough. Can't even go near them for fucking 10 minutes. Whatever it is, it's fucking no good. All right. I don't know. We'll see what happens if I can continue.
Historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you get with your fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more. Because they don't ask
care about lives.
Which is a much
we're in for 250 billion.
Getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons.
What happened to the lives? That was the sugar,
weak people.
The oil in the pan? What?
You take a look at
upside down cake.
We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president. Okay, they respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president,
we go broke.
And what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war
You'd say, here, Russia, here's 22 trillion.
Putin, after I left,
be nice.
Unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him.
When they clipped your ear, was it a negotiation?
And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify,
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war?
Never answered the question.
It's in the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiated
money.
Because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts.
He said lives or anything about humans 3 times. The rest of it was about a wall.
Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from
Here's an intelligent answer.
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
Yeah.
And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight, Afghanistan, the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier.
Oh, that was fucking
Please,
good.
I'll give you a minute here.
Eat you for lunch.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow, quiet please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country.
This fact
she goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate as soon as they left. Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
You talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it.
Not about the people.
He said it was one of the most incredible jobs I've ever seen done.
Thank you.
Listen,
I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the
everything
first hour
he
of the
says
debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment
or
today in
cares
Capitol
about
Hill honoring the
involves
soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan.
That's
I do
the
want to ask
problem
the
with
Vice President,
Republicans, right?
do you believe you bear any responsibility in the
It's
way
not
that
about
withdrawal
the
played out?
person, not about the community.
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this. The president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them.
She almost couldn't get the word out.
Does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be Commander-in-Chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers,
Just
and the
recently,
work that we must do to uphold
at
the
the
strength and the respect of the United States of America around the
grave of
world.
the unknown
President Harris,
soldier,
thank you. President Trump, your response
turned
to
it
her
into a
saying
photo
began
op.
the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan.
You know,
they don't bother
I'm
doing that
a
because
card-carrying
they deal with the wrong people all
Democrat,
the time.
so not even
But I
try
got
it.
involved. And
Actually,
that
I'm
duel
honestly,
is the
I'm an
head of the
independent
Taliban.
more
He's
than
still
anything.
the head of the Taliban. And I told that duel, don't
I
do it
just
anymore.
recently
You do
figured
it
that out.
anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture
But I did
of my
vote him
house?
in
I
on
said, you're gonna have to
2016
figure
because I
that out,
wasn't doing
Abdul.
the Hillary
And for
shit.
18 months, we had
That should have
nobody
shown me I
killed.
was an
We did
independent
have an
then.
agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The
Money,
agreement said you have to
Although,
do this,
that was dumb,
this,
leaving
and they didn't do
military
it. They
equipment.
didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by
But he looks at it because of the
they
value,
didn't do what they were supposed
not
to
what it's
do.
capable of.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the
See,
way,
he doesn't
that's
say we
when
left them
Russia
weapons
attacked
and we left them
Ukraine,
this.
because they saw how
He
incompetent
says
she
equipment.
and her boss
Like,
are.
President Trump, thank you.
He looks
I
at
want
it
to move on now to
as
race and politics
money
in this
lost.
country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was
I don't
not
know.
black,
No, I don't know.
that she put out.
Ever hear John?
I'll say
I
that.
don't know.
And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's okay. That's okay.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career,
I don't know.
attempted to use race to divide the American people. I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do. I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park fight. They admitted, they said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago.
Tongue twister.
Because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world.
Say, looky
and
here.
I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger.
Well, looky here.
But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this.
Talking right
she
now.
is Biden. She's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman. She says she is Biden.
Well, looky.
The worst
Is what it was
inflation
supposed
we've
to say.
ever
Yeah,
had.
okay.
A horrible
That's what I
economy
figured.
because inflation has made it so bad that she can't get away with that.
Time's up.
I want to briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
I have a plan.
That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David.
Oh, Pamela, you're missing it.
As opposed to a conversation that is constantly.
Oh, I know what I was going to say earlier. She missed the line about. He said it again. They're coming in and taking blacks and Mexicans' jobs, right? She should have responded with, I don't think any illegal immigrant is going to take this black woman's
to
job.
confiscate everybody's gun.
President,
You
you
missed
do
it.
have to move on to
She missed it.
In Pennsylvania or
That's
anywhere
what I was
else.
gonna.
That's
Yeah.
what the plan is until just recently.
I just think President Trump has said twice that I need to respond to. I'm sorry, we're gonna move on, Vice President. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known
did it
as
to
Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it.
For the
I had a
government,
choice to make
not
when I
the
was
people.
president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an
Can we
obligation.
go back
even
and
though
charge
politically it
$85
would have
for a
been good, to just let
Band-Aid?
it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my
$600
people, the top people,
for
and they're very
insulin?
good people. I have a lot
Or
of
should
good
we leave it
people
at
in this
$35 for
administration.
the people?
We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and
We
so
give
do they.
Big
They have
Pharma
really
the
bad
break,
ones. The difference is they don't
or do
get
we
rid of
help
them, but let me
Grandma with her
explain.
insulin?
I had a choice to make. Do I
Yes,
save
but-
it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing, but it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And
Money.
what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our
Money.
population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not
Which
have
means
a
he
plan.
fuck it
I
up
have
as
concepts
much as
of
he
a
can.
plan. I'm not president right now.
Think about that when you go to the hospital.
We come up with
Something,
something,
and then
I would
you're on
only
some,
change
you
it
know,
if
you
we
get
come
any
up with
kind of
something that's
medical
better and
shit.
less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that.
He
And
wants
you'll
it
be
for the
hearing about
government.
it in the not
So
too
those of
distant
you that
future.
are like,
Vice
hey,
President
Trump,
Harris, in
we don't care
2017, you
when
supported
you get
Bernie Sanders' proposal
sick,
to do away with private insurance and
or
create
you
a
need like
government-run
some kind
healthcare
of
system.
medication to
2
stay
years later, you
alive.
proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
You voted for the
First of all,
government,
I
not the people.
absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the
She's still
former
gonna
president
speak
has
on
made.
it.
I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Yeah.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was
He
president,
can't say he's a
60
gun owner.
times
He's a felon.
he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the
That
time
was good.
when I will never forget the early morning hours when
Although
it was
she
up
did
for
miss a
vote in the
line.
United
She'd be
States
like,
Senate. And the
could have
late,
been like,
great
her husband
John
and I are
McCain,
both gun owners
who you have
because we're not
disparaged
felons.
as being
You could have fucking shut
you
him
don't
right up
like
with
him,
that.
you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, We will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should
You
be
want
a
to stay
right
alive, you
and
want
not
the
just a
government to
privilege
get
of
fat.
those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Pass it
President
pro
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made
of
a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We could do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait
It's not true.
6 months for
How
an
the fuck is
operation
that?
that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd
She's
like to get to
stupid.
that's
And he's
important for a
stupid.
number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and
She
that's
didn't say
climate
that.
change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. Yeah. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries.
Money.
Why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did he get? Why did she pay him?
She's talking about grandma and grandpa and you and me. He's talking about money.
President Trump, thank you.
So at the end of the day, this businessman's legacy at the golf club is how much he saved the big companies and taxes in 2025. Wow, I got the second yacht that year. Fuck that.
This presidential debate will continue.
Right? Don't you see that? That's the difference, man. Even the old Republicans, you know, they weren't like that. He's a different breed,
a woman sitting on the couch building her credit just by paying. I forgot you were here.
Right,
That's the point. With Self, you get credit for the bills you're going to pay anyways, like your rent, cell phone, and utilities.
My fucking commercials don't give me nothing. They give me nothing. Hey, Russian. I'll try to come back in a few. Let me get. All right. Corn Pop is my friend, Buffalo. I haven't seen them. They left a long time ago. Isn't that amethyst? The regular amethyst? What does that mean? Corn Pop is my friend, Buffalo. I don't even know what that means. Shit, I don't know nothing about that. They left me. I didn't leave them. They dipped. I don't fucking know what happened. Had nothing to do with me. That wasn't me fucking having people call us family and shit. It was this other fucking nosy thing. Oh, yeah. I think she's definitely up in as far as getting the actual answers out and shit, not being nasty. You know. Some people will be like, "Oh, he told her to fuck off" or whatever, but you don't hear him talking about what he's gonna do or why he's any better, other than money. Oh, they gave this one money, they gave that one money. We lost money, money, money here, money there. The root of all fucking evil. I hate fucking money. These motherfuckers.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together, that it is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about.
She hasn't been president for 3.5 years.
Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together.
This whole thing will be an attack on her.
You haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision.
I hope the mic picked that up, man.
One simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world they laugh. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the
Every
Taliban.
war is like no other.
She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst.
What's he gonna do?
The worst.
He's dogging her the whole time.
In the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News
He said nothing
debate from
about what he
Philadelphia
would do.
National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir.
He
Thank you for
dogged
watching here in the U.S.
The
and all over
entire
the world,
closing
and from all of
argument.
us
Did
here
you
at
see
ABC
that?
News. Good night.
She said, "This is what I'll do. This is what I'll do. This is what we'll do." You said, "Well, why did you do it? Why can't you do it? Why can't you do it?" Like, not give a reason why to vote for him.
It was a lively debate from the economy to abortion to Afghanistan.
Nothing.
They had it all, and it was historic. John Carl, fiery. Wow. Wow. That was quite a debate. And I'm Jonathan Carl here with, of course, Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. Our reporters across the news division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks. You can find all of that on abcnews.com. But I would like to replay the moment at the very start of this debate because it was quite a moment. The handshake. And if you want,
Second base. Thank you.
I mean, quite a moment. First of all, because we hadn't seen a handshake. We haven't seen a handshake in a long time.
She initiated that one.
And not only did she initiate it, she walked over to him and sought him out, put the hands out, and also made the first words.
And probably had a plan if he hadn't put his hand out either.
Interesting. So somewhere at the bottom line,
I think clearly what Kamala Harris wanted to do was be the candidate of hope, the candidate of the future. Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. I think we saw him going from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at her, to just angry. I mean, really
angry because he couldn't talk about substance. He couldn't talk about substance. He couldn't talk about policy. He couldn't talk about anything other than money and disregard for
Kamala
Canada.
Harris looking over, baiting him.
Can you not hear that, people?
And again,
Do you not
the
hear that?
microphones were muted when they weren't speaking, but many times she didn't need a microphone. You watch Donald Trump get mad and scowl through things. And, you know, John, we were all talking leading up to this about how this would go, what Donald Trump he would see. I think he had a plan for
What kind of
talking about
American
what
do you
he
want?
saw
I mean, Jesus.
as the next term.
All right, I gotta show somebody this because this is
change policy views on so many things. Part of the reason is Donald Trump really was not effective in bringing the debate to her. I agree with you. I think that he was not just angry, but also rattled. And in contrast, Harris, who again, much of the world doesn't know, Harris looks like she
You get the
belongs
whole
on the
damn
stage,
couch.
looks
The
like
whole couch.
she is somebody
They're
that
gonna
deserves
sit
president.
together.
And that's certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you the Harris campaign feels very good. They
Under
feel
the
they had a
window.
very strong night, that she was in command, that she did look presidential, and that she was able, they feel, to
Sticking
hold
out the
Donald
window.
Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel that the strongest example of that was that exchange on abortion, where
You
she
put
was
him on a
able really to
microscope.
blame
Well,
Donald
she
Trump
tore him
directly
up.
to his face. I mean, she said, what you are putting women through is unconscionable. Yes, she goaded him. She flat out trolled him. Many times got him off message.
Trolled
But
him.
she also talked directly to voters, even inviting them to a Trump rally to underscore that central argument in her campaign. And she says he's only out for himself, but she argues she's out for the American people.
Rachel?
Yeah, well, look, the Trump campaign is going to be seizing on the
Who
fact
cares
that Vice
about what his
President Kamala Harris
legacy
did not
is
do
with
a
big
great
business,
job today
right?
really explaining
Because
her
he was a
policy
businessman,
shifts,
right?
And that is what they have
So he
to do.
wants
They're
his
really trying to
picture
define
on
Muslim
a
voters,
wall
voters
somewhere with
have
an
a lot of
award
questions
for how
about her
much,
policy
how well he
positions.
did
At
for,
the same time, though,
the
almost
auto
every single
industry
thing
or
that Vice
fucking
President Kamala Harris
something.
said tonight got under Trump's skin. And that is exactly what his allies and his advisors did not want to see.
What,
I can
right
tell
now?
you, I do not think that part of Donald Trump's debate prep was people eating dogs in Springfield or comparing rally sizes. They wanted him to stay focused on the issues, especially the ones that he has an edge on Harris, economy and immigration.
I mean, you want to get under Donald Trump's skin, you question the people at his rallies. And that was something else. Martha, you have?
I have with us right now Governor Tim Walz, of course, the Democratic vice presidential candidate. Welcome, Governor Walz. How are you feeling? What's your reaction to the debate tonight?
Martha, I'm feeling great because what I knew, and I think so many do, and now many Americans know, is you saw a president for all America in Kamala Harris. You saw the confidence, you saw the vision, you saw.
You got some shit going on. Where? We got another active shooter in Kentucky, another highway shooter. Active shooter shooting on L and N Turnpike, Munford, Kentucky. Excuse me, Munfordville, Kentucky. Possibly several shot. Shooter at large. Possibly several shot. Oh, shit, that's him. Hang on. Yeah, it could mail on. I'm not hearing nothing on the scanner. Oh, he's listening to what? What county? Hart County? All right, I got Kentucky. Let's hear. Let me see if I can find Hart County. Got it. H-A-R-T County. We've got 6:42 p.m. active shooter. Shooter on L&N Turnpike, Munfordville, Kentucky. Possibly several shot. Shooter at large. Possibly several shot. Why is there a phone number for comments or suggestions on the scanner feed? I don't get that. My link disappeared. Thanks, Donna. What do you got over here? What is that? I could know what. Oh, what do we got here? All I'm seeing is it could melt 5 minutes ago. I think Icked Mel is the only one carrying it right now. Well, Stony knows something I don't. It's not very close. It's kind of distant, is what I heard Icked say. What is he listening to? I got Hard On, nothing. Kentucky State Police. Icked, what are you listening to? Hmm. Doubt he's going to answer me. Hmm. Someone said this is 2 hours away.
That's really far away. See the car. Suppose the people on
2 hours and 8 minutes away from the other location. See, the fucking media, man, they make shit like spawn, man. I got nothing on my scanners of that area. I don't know what they could do. I wonder if we're being trolled because, like, this scanner now says Cash App donations to Money Logan 427 something something or other. It's weird. And then the other one says on heart active shooting, possibly several shot shooter at large. Comments and suggestions, dial a phone number. It's just, I've never seen that. And nothing's being said in the scanner. Something's weird. Like, I don't know. Tony, have you heard anything? 'Cause I got nothing on the scanners. You can't just keep playing naked. Like, I don't know what he's listening to. I asked if I could play his audio, and he didn't see it to answer. Ooh, I got something. Heart. Helicopter's clear. Hmm. Wish you could listen to two of these at the same time on here. Now I gotta close this, open the other one. There's only 500 listeners on the other one. Why the fuck would the Kentucky State Police Post 3 in Bowling Green, whatever, right, have Cash App donations to slogan? Up the Scanner Pro. No, more people are listening over here. I'm gonna listen to Hart County, I guess. I'm not getting anything. Mm. Scanner is on. It's quiet as fuck. There ain't a goddamn thing being said. I'm listening to Hart right now. Everything's super quiet. I don't hear nothing. Let's see what it can say. Watch how they tear up Trump's debate, man. That was bad. He didn't have a lot of time to fuck around and tell the people what he was going to do. He just bitched about everybody else. Yeah, I'm not hearing nothing about a second thing. So, I'm going to get out of there. Joe's live. I told him trim his eyebrows, man. Go check out Joe. Here you go. Go do a JMAC raid. Have fun with this loser.
Shut the fuck up, bro.
Oh, he's not listening to me.
JMAC. Trim the eyebrows.
Go there. J&N Exploration. He's live.
Talk right now.
With his girlfriend. His eyebrows are like this thick right
about
now.
This economy challenge shit, I'm gonna hold it off for another night.
Yeah, chicken.
Unfortunately, the next time I'm gonna be off.
Oh shit! His tooth is broken in the front.
Friday. Shut up, bro.
Oh my god! He's lost his tooth.
He sounds chicken.
Holy shit! Dude, did she slap that tooth out? You can't hide it. Own it.
No, I did not.
He says you can't hide it. Own it. Yeah.
So
I like he thinks he's getting out of this question. How Joe lose his front teeth? No, no, no. You are not getting away without telling us. There's only 2 people watching. Yeah, get the JNNs. You gotta watch this shit. His tooth is all knocked the fuck out or something.
You're not getting away without telling us how. What are you talking about?
Smile.
No.
I want to troll him. I'm gonna put all I want for Christmas is what, Joe?
Oh, your new sub? Oh, I appreciate that. All I want for Christmas is what, Joe?
Yeah.
Why do people talking about my job? Don't worry about my damn job. Some media 13. Joe, blink fast if she slapped you. Who are you talking about? This one? Running with scissors, what's up? Yeah. He's talking about you. Slap me or something. What's up, Mrs. Donna? So like I said, this condiment challenge is not gonna happen until I don't know. I'm not sure when the next time we'll be around her because she wants to be the one to actually mix everything and be on her phone, live stream, and watch everything, and stuff like that. So. Bro, what are you talking about? The store, what are you talking about? I'm sure he did. JMACK has always shot me out. JMACK rated. You think I lost it at work at the mall? Okay. You hear this? I now work at the mall. You look like Ruby Huey with no teeth. Is your brother Paul Black? Oh, God. I think you want to hear that one from out over there.
Oh, I gotta hear the story, Joe. What happened?
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened. You just woke up with 50 cents under your pillow. Oh, I'm so fucking happy that's it.
Let's go tell us. What happened? The ISS. Man, it's okay. Just blink. We will not tell her. I don't think you guys want to hear this one mouth. I'm telling you right now. What do you mean it had to be her? It had to be her what? No chicken bone.
He keeps looking at her. Mamma mia.
Pretty sure JMAC. Look at him. He looks so sad and depressed. Like calling for help. Oh my god. Okay. Maybe she slapped him with her. Maybe she slapped him with her boob.
What the fuck? I didn't write that. Somebody else did.
And this is coming from a female.
Yeah.
So, epic story. You're not telling us. Oh my god, bro. Maybe she slapped him with her boob. Jay. You guys are off the wall. Come on, Joe, take a bite. Take a bite at it. And try us. We don't believe you. I swear on the tooth fairy. I'm not biting nobody's fucking boob, so.
It's obvious his fucking tooth is out, right? He won't tell us. Oh my god.
I'm not biting nobody's fucking boob. I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I didn't fall over trying to put underwear on.
Oh God, is Trump really saying that?
On an emergency at the poll. I'm glad she ain't paying attention. No, I'm not paid more for having a job. So you basically saying that she did it right. Just blink, so everything will be okay. Stupid. Guys, she didn't do anything. Take points. It's got nothing to do with her cooking.
It says, was it her cooking?
Do you have a fire exit you can run to? No, I don't. Jeez. Is that a phone or Inspector Gadget's helicopter? No, it's not. YMCA or the Red Cross help a man in your situation, Joe. Oh, okay, guys. She did not slap me in the mouth with her boob and knock my teeth out, first of all. Secondly, I'm not biting nobody's fucking titties. And lastly, was not her cooking. That fan's not expected to get his helicopter. What do you know what happened then? Two people in here said, oh my God. don't work anymore. I'm gonna say you admitted it. Thank you. No, I'm not mall security.
All right, I've been on 2 hours. I'm gonna watch him have some laughs. Although I'll probably end it the second I end it. So
I got scared when she speaks.
I gotta go watch the reviews on the debate.
Wow.
I think it's funny. Y'all have a good night, man.
Okay.
Big shout out to Miss Donna Cantor. Thank you. Ginger Paranormal. Thank you for being a member for 2 months. Y'all have a good one. Later.